You know, in our world today, it feels like everything's connected. We're always online, always plugged in. It's kind of hard to imagine any corner of the globe is truly untouched. But guess what? Hidden away in deep forests and on remote islands, there are entire communities who have chosen a totally different way of life. Today, we're going to take a look at these voluntarily isolated peoples and explore a really profound idea: their right to simply be left alone.
I mean, think about it for a second. With 8 billion of us on the planet, is it even possible for someone to be completely disconnected? We see globalization as this unstoppable train, right? But what if the most powerful thing a community can do is just step off the tracks entirely?
And we're not just talking about one or two small groups here. Believe it or not, estimates put the number at over 196 distinct communities. Now, the vast majority of them, something like 95%, are deep within the Amazon rainforest. But you'll find others in some pretty surprising places around the world.
Okay, so first things first, we have to clear up a huge misconception right away. You've probably heard the term lost tribes, right? It sounds kind of romantic, like something out of an adventure movie. Well, we need to ditch that term because these groups aren't lost at all. A much better way to describe them is voluntarily isolated peoples, and that word, voluntarily, is the key. Their isolation isn't an accident, it's a deliberate strategy. It's a conscious choice to stay away from the rest of the world, and almost always, that choice is a direct response to violence, disease, and really bad past experiences. So let's just put it side by side. The myth is that these are lost people, frozen in time, with no clue that we even exist. But the reality? Oh, they know we're here. They see the planes flying overhead, they run into illegal loggers, they hear the sounds of our world encroaching on theirs. They know about us. And they've made a calculated decision: stay away for your own survival. And if you really want to understand that choice, there is no better or more intense example than the Sentinelese. They're often called the most isolated people on the entire planet. These folks live on North Sentinel Island. It's technically part of India, out in the Bay of Bengal. And for what might be thousands of years, they have defended their home, patrolling their beaches and making it crystal clear that outsiders are not welcome. What a story of incredible resilience, right? We're talking about a pretty small population, maybe 50 to 200 people, who have successfully held their ground for generations with just bows and arrows. Their message is so unambiguous that the Indian government finally got it, and now they enforce a strict no-contact policy. They've essentially created a 5-kilometer buffer zone around the island. Now, their hostility isn't random. It's a defense mechanism born from absolute trauma. Back in the British colonial days, outsiders tried to make contact, and it was a disaster. Disease and violence just tore through their population. That kind of historical memory runs deep. And that tragic incident in 2018 with the American missionary was just another brutal reminder that their answer to the outside world is, and will be, no. But here's the thing. The Sentinelese, as unique as they are not alone in their choice. This is happening all over the globe, and to see the bigger picture, we really have to look to the Amazon rainforest. So, in the Amazon, you've got groups like the Mashco-Piro in Peru. They're one of the larger groups, with maybe 750 people. But they're being seen more and more, not because they want to be, but because illegal logging is pushing them out of their territory. And then you have the Kawhiva in Brazil. They're a tiny, nomadic group always on the move. For them, every acre of forest that gets cut down isn't just a loss of land, it's a direct threat to their very existence. And you see this same heartbreaking pattern playing out everywhere. In Paraguay, the Ayoreo are literally on the run from bulldozers clearing land for cattle ranches. Brazil and Peru are hotspots, with dozens and dozens of distinct groups. And it's not just South America. In Asia and the Pacific, communities like the Shompan are facing down so-called development. The story is tragically the same. Their isolation is a last-ditch defense against a modern world that just won't stop closing in. And that really gets to the heart of the problem. For these communities, contact isn't about a friendly cultural exchange. It's a genuine life-or-death threat. The forces pushing in on them are almost always about money. Illegal logging is the biggest one, tearing through the land that about 65% of these groups call home. Then you've got mining and big agribusiness right behind, just gobbling up the forests they need to survive. But the most immediate, the most terrifying threat of all? It's disease. Think about it. They've been separated from the rest of us for generations, maybe centuries. They have zero immunity to stuff we barely think about, like the flu or even a common cold. Historically, the numbers are just devastating. After first contact, it's not uncommon for over half the population to be wiped out. A sniffle for us can be a plague for them.
And look, the situation is incredibly urgent. The clock is ticking, and it is ticking fast. Recent reports are painting a really grim picture, warning that if their lands aren't seriously protected, half of all these voluntarily isolated groups could be gone within the next 10 years.
So this all leads us to a final, and honestly, the most important question. This isn't just some curious little story for an anthropology textbook. This is a massive human rights issue. It's about the right to choose, the right to exist, and maybe even the right to disconnect.
So, why was it so absolutely crucial that we, the big, loud, connected world, respect their choice to be left alone? Well, the answer really gets to the core of what we value as human beings.
First off, it's about self-determination. That's a fundamental human right, the right to decide your own future. Second, as we've seen, it's a matter of sheer survival. Contact is very often a death sentence. But it's also about our shared human story. These groups represent ways of life, knowledge, and perspectives that are found nowhere else on Earth. And you know what? By protecting their lands, we're also protecting some of the most vital biodiverse ecosystems we have left.
You know, there's a quote that I think just captures this whole idea perfectly.
And that's really the thought I want to leave you with. In a world that is constantly demanding that we connect, share, and engage, have we forgotten the value of being left alone? In our rush to bring everyone into our global village, maybe the most respectful, most humane thing we can do for these communities is to simply honor their wish to remain unconnected.